A quick audio check. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to count from 1 to 5. If I'm audible, I want you to type I in the chat window. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I'm audible, please type I in the chat window. Lovely. Thank you, Obed, Lavina, Devanshu. Thank you, Janani. Okay. Hey, John. Hi. You'll have to allow us a couple of minutes to start. It's 11:24 by my watch in India. And we will start sharp at 11:30. For some of you who are worried that you cannot see messages from others, please understand that all of you are in the mute mode. And until you are given the permission, you will not be able to unmute your mics. It will remain in the same fashion until the last 10 minutes of the session. All the panelists will be able to see your chat or your messages on the chat window. Attendees cannot see messages from others. This is just to ensure that your chat window does not get cluttered. I do not have an option. It can be distracting sometimes when you're attending an online session. The chat window is the go-to place for any support that you need during the course of the session. If you have any technical or any other challenge while watching the webinar or the session, please use the chat window. I, along with my colleagues, will try and help you out. The moderator would be looking at the Q&A section. We will take up your questions in the end of the... all videos are off. All videos are off. This is the webinar mode, right? The videos are off by design. Yeah. Yeah. So if you have to pose any questions to the facilitator, if you have to pose any questions to the mentor for today's session, you will use the question and answer window, right? Please allow us time to respond. Usually we would like to take the questions towards the end of the session. That will help us not to get distracted and stay value everyone's time in the session, right? Till a few minutes. Let me probably use this time in between. Many of you have been asking us about the past sessions. All our past sessions are available on our YouTube channel. You can use the barcode the QR code to go to the website, or if you're going to website, if you're going to the YouTube, you can find our channel with NPOCA. NPOCA. I would recommend that you subscribe to the channel largely to ensure that you are getting updates. Subscribe and follow the channel so that whatever videos that we are updating, they reach you. All our videos on the channel are not necessarily our webinars. There are also short videos that we intend to have, which would be helpful. And there is no separate mechanism of announcing for those sessions. So we still have a couple of minutes in case some of you would want to go and watch or look at that session. Do not log out. Do not log out from the session. I'm switching off my video for a minute, please. Okay, it's 11:30 by my watch. One more time, it's going to be a repetition for some of you who came in early. A quick audio check for everyone. If I'm audible, please type yes in the chat window. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. If my screen is visible, please type yes or I. Please type I if you can see my screen. Just to let everyone know, you are on the mute mode and it is going to remain in the same fashion until the end of the session, where we will invite some of you to ask your questions using your microphones. But for the large part of, thank you so much. That helps. That helps. Thank you so much. If you have any questions to the mentor of the session, please use the Q&A section. If you have any questions to the mentor, you will use the Q&A session or Q&A section. Your text messages are only visible to the panelists. You will not be able to you will not be able to see or chat with other attendees. This is largely done to avoid distractions for you. For any support that you need during the session, please ping us in the chat window. I, along with my colleagues, will try and help you. All our sessions, somebody's asked me of the sessions are not in English. By and large, I think English would be the predominant language. We might have used Hindi in a couple of places. Otherwise, it's English. And you know, while we would have loved to have it a multilingual thing, but that's the constraint that we'll have to live with. Many of you have been asking me about the recorded sessions. We have a channel on YouTube called NPOCA, National Program on Career Awareness. You can use the QR code or just go to YouTube and search for NPOCA. I would recommend that you subscribe and follow the channel just to get just to get more updates. Right? Before I move on to the session, I would want you to take note of the next two sessions that we do, something that we announce every week. The next session is going to be a very interesting one with Mr. Aditya Barlia coming in and sharing his experience about liberal art, its scope and future prospects. And then we have a session on life skills. That will be the first session of August on 2nd, where we will talk about personal effectiveness. If I'm clear to everyone, I want you to type yes. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Much appreciated. So let's get started to what, I would not take much time. Let me introduce the speaker for today's session. An amazing personality. I think a very, very qualified person for taking a session, Mr. Indradeep Mazumdar. Indradeep is a management consultant with Mercer in Australia. This session is also being beamed from outside of India. Indradeep brings in around 2 decades of experience, a very, very diversified experience across Asia Pacific region, where he has been working on strategy, governance, and HR primarily. Indradeep has a very keen interest, and that is primarily where we have been able to help. We've been able to help him, or we've been able to have him in today's session. He has a very, very strong interest or a keen interest in career guidance. He has been mentoring youth since 2010, focusing on career planning, higher education, and college selection. So the mentor in IE is essentially stands for international education. Indradeep has done his engineering, post which he has done his double masters, one in engineering from University of Queensland, and he followed it with an MBA from Australian Graduate School of Management, right? I would like to welcome Indradeep on the session. I would, Indradeep, if you can just switch on your video, please, and come on. Thank you so much. It's so lovely. I'm going to switch off my video now, Indradeep, and the stage is all yours.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Arun.
So thank you so much for making us.
I'll just share my screen and then we'll get started. So, all right. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out to come in and attend this session. I know that we've got students from all across the world. I think we've got students from Asia, from the Middle East, from Africa. I'm based in Australia. I've been around here for 12 years. I've been in education consulting for about 20 years, and I know Arun for a similar period of time. This is a really exciting opportunity for me to present basically what options you have if you are studying physics, chemistry, and mathematics in your school level, and provide a little bit of perspective and context from having worked as an engineer for 5 years, having done a Master's of Engineering degree, and then followed that up with an MBA degree. So it'll be a really exciting time for us. I mean, hopefully you can all see my screen. if you can, could you just let me know in your chat window? Yep. Okay, that's good. Thank you so much. All right, perfect. So let's just get started with this. As Arun said, I have been in education consulting for a long time. And one of the biggest questions that I've also always faced is, what do I do in my career after this? Like, I've taken physics, chemistry, mathematics. It seems like computer science or medicine or electronics, these are the main career opportunities for me. And I've always said, no, it's not. Particularly in the last 5 to 10 years, things have changed up so much. There are many, many different career pathways that you could take. I mean, I'll give you my perspective. The slide deck that I'll take you through will be a lot of information in there. We are recording this and it's also on Facebook Live. So you'll obviously have access to the content later on. So my main focus at this time is to provide you with the alternatives that exist. So there's a lot of things that you can consider that you should be aware of, but at the same time, give you some perspectives, having worked in a field after my physics, chemistry, and mathematics. So after I finished my schooling, I went and did my bachelor's of engineering, like a lot of students would, not really knowing what to get in for. So I did my electronics and telecommunications engineering. After I finished my bachelor's degree, again, like a lot of Indian students do, I came and did my master's of engineering. But then I focused on more sort of, telecommunication, radio frequency, microwave communications kind of field. And then I worked for 5 years in India and in the US. I was designing chips. So I was working on a chip design technology for a company called Texas Instruments. But 5 years down the line, I decided that, I want to explore more. I want to find out what else is out there. And therefore came in and did my MBA. And for the last 10 years after my MBA, I've been working in product management, corporate strategy, board governance. I saw a question pop up a little while back, what Mercer is. So Mercer is one of the world's largest HR consulting firm. So right now in my career, I'm focusing on advising CEOs and senior executives how to determine their performance regime, right? So how do you measure the performance for a CEO? How do you ensure that they're being properly remunerated? So that's about my background, but let's get stuck into this. I mean, I think the intent is, if you do have any questions, feel free to send it through. And we've got a moderator who will be reviewing those questions. And then obviously at the end, there'll be an open Q&A to address those questions. So we've broken this presentation up into 2 parts, a study in India and a study abroad. You see a name out there, which is One Click. I mean, I'm a director of a company called One Click Prep, and we focus on career advising and helping students go through their SAT, GMAT, GRE, focusing on education abroad. So my specialization is international education. That's what I spend a lot of my time on. But having said that, I also, having studied in India, I have a lot of students in India who come and chat to me about what should they be doing next, and what sort of school should they be looking at, what are the admission criteria, and so on. All right, so let's start with a very broad sort of opportunity for you to start thinking of. After a physics, chemistry, maths, or a PCM, to keep it short, what sort of broad career opportunities do you have? So there's like the obvious physics, chemistry, which you can do your undergrad in physics. It's a BSc or a Bachelor of Science degree, so not engineering, but science, typically a 3-year program. And within that, you can study biophysics, meteorology, astrophysics, astronomy, and nuclear physics. Now, they all sound to be really cool, and they're absolutely extremely cool. Bearing in mind that once you study from any of these courses, it's not just India that you've got an option in. You can use your undergrad degree, which in this case, I'm talking about a BSc degree, and you can use that to step up and do either a master's degree overseas or even get an overseas job. From a chemistry perspective, you can study in chemical, plastics and polymers, ceramics, food technology, and textiles. These are the 5 or 6 sort of the most popular degrees that you can get once you're studying in a BSc chemistry. So when you get in to do a BSc degree, it's often a fairly generic and open-ended degree, but you could specialize in any of these professions. So as an example, if you are specializing in ceramics, then there's a lot of career opportunities that exist in the design and implementation and application of ceramic technology. So there's a lot of manufacturing, construction, engineering companies that have now started recruiting people with that sort of a background. So at this stage, you should follow what you're passionate about, and you should understand what the various options are. If you then keep moving on, and then there's the Navy or the Air Force or Army, so you can absolutely get into either one of them through a physics, chemistry, maths pathway, or get into Merchant Navy, another extremely popular, and this has been popular for a long, long time. Pharmacy, architecture, or then you could do a BSc math and a stat combination, and you can also get into aviation. By aviation, we're talking about essentially like an aviation aeronautical engineering or an aviation application career. So obviously, depending on where you want to go, you take a step back and you work out whether you've got physics, chemistry, math, and if you do, then these are just the top options that are available right now. A lot of them were not really dominant or present like even 10 years back, 15 years back. They were there, but not really popular, but now they're becoming extremely popular. As an example, after a computer science, from a computer science perspective, you could do either a BSc in computer science, or you could do a Bachelor of Computer Application or a BCA degree, or you could do a BSc as in a Bachelor of Computer Science, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, but focusing on IT. The other question that I often get is, what is a difference between an IT career and a computer career? Now, when you study abroad, or when you go and try and study and work in a country outside India, predominantly the sort of first world economies, US, UK, Canada, Germany, France, Australia, New Zealand, even Singapore, then there is a subtle difference between computer science and IT. As far as studying within India, they're often used interchangeably. But in my mind, the only difference between a computer science and an IT program is IT programs are more focused on development, so programming and coding and algorithms, whereas a computer science degree is a bit broader than that. It takes into account hardware design, so things that you need to actually program a computer. So that sits in really well with an electronics degree, or almost like a networking. So computer networking and servers and technologies and securities, that's where computer science comes in. But within India, they're broadly used interchangeably with a little bit of subtle difference. But if you go overseas, you'll see that an IT degree is almost non-existent, because no one just studies programming. You can study it on your own. It's more the computer science that becomes relevant. From an engineering perspective, there's again a whole range of engineering degrees that you can study: aeronautics, agriculture, robotics, mining, civil, and so on. So there's electrical, electronics, telecommunication, and computer science. So the purpose for me to give you this slide and to start this conversation is just to let you know that, look, there are many different opportunities, many different options that are out there. Just because you've studied PCM doesn't necessarily mean that you just have medical and engineering. You can get into science, you can get into pure physics-based career, pure chemistry-based career, or you can get into computers. That's where the world is going. So, a data-based career like business analyst or a data analyst or predictive analytics. So all of these are really, really important. And I can tell you, because I'm at the forefront of recruitment, right? I mean, I don't recruit, but being an HR consulting firm, I know what companies are looking for. And one of the biggest things that I see all across Asia Pacific, because I consult to all the large companies across Asia Pacific, is the over focus almost, or the over leverage on data and computer science and algorithms and systems thinking. So even if you do not have a computer science background and you've done, let's say, a science degree, or let's say you've done civil engineering, a lot of people are now pushing towards, let's try and get some thinking around how do you solve for tomorrow's problems. So really, really important that you understand that the world is your oyster, many opportunities for you. Initially, you might think, well, yeah, but I might not get enough money. Doesn't really matter. In the long run, if you have your proper career planning done, there are opportunities for you to peg it back and get back to that sort of high earning potential. All right. There's a few slides that I've got after this where I've tried to bring up some of the more, not unusual, but beyond the usual career choices. We'll start off with architecture. There's many different opportunities that exist within architecture. Urban planning, urban design, sustainable architecture, to name a few. As you can understand, cities are getting larger, more construction work happening. There's significant focus on the aesthetic part of engineering, so which is basically architecture. Like, how do you make things productive? How do you make things look pretty? How do you make things extremely useful, all together at the same time? The top colleges for architecture are, IIT Roorkee is a really good program there. Kharagpur is another one. JJ College of Architecture. There's a couple in New Delhi. There's the CEPT in Gujarat, and NIT Calicut is also a really good program. It has started getting a lot of traction, architecture degrees. And, I've just put in a basic sort of starting salary that I think an architect from any of these colleges can earn. That's around that sort of 5 lakhs, 5 to 6 lakhs. And obviously it increases with experience. But the beauty with architecture is you could almost get paid as much as a software engineer does, but you could do something that you're really talented in and something that really attracts you. So people who are really good in architecture are generally more creative, and people who can use and balance the left and the right side of their thinking, of their mind. So the creative part aligned with the mathematical and the numerical part. And if you can do that, then architecture is a fantastic opportunity for you. All right. The next one is just a pure physics degree. So you can have a physics major, and you can get into work like defense, aerospace, healthcare, nuclear physics, data science. I cannot stress this enough, but in my experience, people with a pure physics degree, they have a significant advantage when it comes to these new age kind of careers, right? I mean, data analyst or analytics. You can also go for research or teaching when you have a career in physics. I've put down a sort of basic salary range, so 20,000, 40,000 per month. Bearing in mind that this is purely like as it stands today. If you look at what the basic salary was in a pure course like physics and chemistry, which I'll cover in the next slide, they have grown 3 or 4 times in the last 5 to 6 years. And that's because people have realized that in order to progress as an economy and as a country and as a company, you need to have people with understanding of mathematics, understanding of how science works. So again, something which a lot of people do not go for necessarily, but is a brilliant program. I put down some top colleges. You probably have heard of all of them. Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, Hansraj College, St. Stephen's College, really good, along with economics option there. BHU, Varanasi, really good, elite college. St. Xavier's in both Calcutta and Mumbai, Presidency in Calcutta, and Ferguson College from Pune. So these are the top colleges for physics. For most of these entry levels, you would require to have a strong performance in your physics, chemistry, and maths, along with English in your year 12, irrespective of whether that's CBSE, ICSE, or a regional board. But once you do get that sort of high mark, then having a career opportunity here is not such a bad option. I'll give you an example from my personal life. When we studied engineering, that was about 2002 is when I finished my engineering. So you can understand that's like, almost 20 years back. And when we were deciding whether to go in for an engineering degree or something else, there was one student who studied with us, but who decided to go in for a physics degree. And a lot of people, just like, how people think, we went, well, why aren't you doing an engineering degree? Why are you doing a physics degree? What ended up happening was because most of the hard-working students at that point ended up in engineering, the physics class had really strong, talented people, but not necessarily the ones that were working hard. So this guy got a smashing result in physics, and now he's a research associate at a university in the US, like a top 20 university in the US, and has a fantastic career opportunity. So even 20 years back, if you can plan what you're looking for and know what the steps are, if you can take them in a methodical and sequential manner, then there's, a world's your oyster, as I keep saying. Nuclear physics, another brilliant career path for people who are thinking about the benefits of energy consumption, the benefits of agriculture, and how nuclear physics can play a part in that. Nuclear physics is not just about creating nuclear bombs, right? It's like using nuclear science and designing products that help in all of the fields that you see over there, like high energy physics, that's talking about physics in relation to particles that have extremely high energy. So things like a photon, things like an electron, like things that have really high energy. How do you convert that into something more practical? Okay, moving on. Career opportunities in chemistry, again, a very similar sort of salary range as before. St. Stephen College, really good. Loyola, good. Hansraj, good. St. Joseph's College in Bangalore and Christ University, I think they're pretty good programs for chemistry. You can focus on any of these following fields that you see over there: analytical chemistry, organic, inorganic, environmental, food, flavor, metallurgy, and surface. So just to give you a brief understanding of what they actually mean. So things like analytical chemistry is looking at more sort of being an experimental chemist, if you know what that means. So it's like, somebody else will come up with hypothesis and you need to go out and prove and run experiments to prove whether they work or not. Organic chemistry and inorganic chemistry, I mean, I think if you're doing PCM, you know what the difference is between the two. Mainly as in a chemistry career, you're looking for research and opportunities to improve design of products, design of application of products, usability of products, making it more effective, more cost effective, more productive, and being able to design these products quicker and better. So often, if you're studying, even if you're doing something in chemistry, you would probably go hand in hand with physics and maths. And this is also a pure science degree, a lot less popular than physics for obvious reasons, because you're kind of a little bit more narrow in sort of the focus. But to me, I think career opportunities in chemistry are just increasing every day. Like if you think about any kind of chemical, think about what's happening in the world right now. There's COVID. What do you need? You need drugs. Who are the ones who will be designing them? Well, people from biomedical and people with a chemistry background. Those are the ones who will be designing them. So the way the world is going, things are becoming more accessible, but at the same time, there's more diseases, there's more urban population growth. You need to come up with ways by which you can address the environmental impacts. It's just massive as a career opportunities. I mean, if you haven't considered that, if you like chemistry, I would strongly encourage you to consider a career in chemistry. Mathematics, it's probably a lot more stock standard, and people have generally done mathematics in association with something else. So like a maths stats degree or a maths economics degree. But in my mind, they've always gone hand in hand with what has been the norm. So what do other people do? And you follow that. But if you think about what it is and what your career opportunities are, they're massive. So you can have a career in actuarial science, in data science. You can have a career in banking, insurance, finance, stock market. I mean, if you think about all the careers that require you to have significant mathematical and analytical prowess, careers like predicting stock market volatility, predicting share price, predicting or helping organizations in investing their money, the shareholders' money. There are many, many areas where an understanding of mathematics is probably as important, if not even more, than an understanding of the subject matter like finance. Career in actuarial science and data science, extremely important as well to have a mathematical background. So someone who's studying in actuarial science is someone who's doing mathematical models, right? So whether that's for economics purpose or finance purpose or banking purpose or insurance purpose, or even helping predicting what the weather's going to be like. Actuarial science uses lots and lots of mathematical model, and they are looking, that stream is looking for people who have a mathematical bias, like people who can think mathematical, people who can problem solve using a mathematical approach. Data science, I've mentioned this multiple times, is another strong area of mathematics, because if you trust me when I say that, it's all big data, right? I mean, there's so much amount of data that's out there. Like, how do you look at data and know whether the data is a result of a correlation or whether the data just seems to be? So as an example, if you think about the last 7 days weather in a particular city, and they've all been rainy, what's going to happen to the 8th day? Is it going to be rainy or not? So these are things that, whether you're using predictive algorithms or you're using economical forecasting, data science is looking at huge sets of data. You're looking at how the weather has been in that particular city for the last 200 years, for example, and then overlaying that with what's happening with cities around that place. So there's so much data. So you need to be able to mathematically form hypothesis and progress from there. Project development, numerical analysis, research opportunities, and financial analyst, just to name a few. Again, you see the salary range is not that different, but a career opportunity in mathematics, and the next slide where we talk about statistics, is probably even more exciting if you consider what's going to happen overseas, right? So when you go and when you study internationally, the career opportunities that you have internationally, having a background in physics, chemistry, mathematics is extremely void. There's so much you can do. Some of the top colleges for mathematics, Indian Statistical Institute, IIT Bombay, Kharagpur, Guwahati, ISC, Institute of Mathematical Sciences, and Delhi Technological University. Although you see DTU or St. Stephen's College, they have really strong programs for the core subjects like maths, physics, and chemistry. Now, my experience, again, I know a lot of people personally and also among my students who've gone out and got a degree from one of those schools like St. Stephen's or DTU, and they're doing really well for themselves. And the reason why they have been able to take that to the next level is almost because they are very keen about how they can use their degree and their experience and get better at what they're doing. So just like the choice and selection of the course is important, it's also fundamentally important for you to realize how can you use all of that experience that you've got, all the degrees that you've studied, to make a meaningful career out of yourself, right? I mean, if you think about myself, I've got a Master's of Engineering degree, I've got an MBA degree. It's almost like, well, which one is it? Like, why do you have so many different educational backgrounds? But they all keep adding up, right? And when you start thinking about it, when I did my engineering degree, I wanted to be an engineer. That's what I wanted to do. And therefore, I thought that my bachelor's degree wasn't enough. And I'm talking about like 20 years back. So back in those days, it wasn't as exciting as it is now. So I did not just finish my undergrad degree. I went on to do a postgraduate degree. Once I finished that, I then went straight into working as an engineer. And I worked for 5 years. And then after that, I realized, you know what, this is really exciting. But what I want to do is understand the implications and the applications of engineering. So I did the theory part and the design part first. And then I said, well, if I build a product as an engineer, how am I going to make money out of it? That's where the MBA came. So it's all a story that you start weaving. And it starts at this age, at your early age. But as long as you know that there are opportunities for you, then you know that what the different pathways are, rather than just running behind the obvious and not doing what could potentially be your sweet spot or something that you would really enjoy. A career opportunity in statistics is slightly different from a mathematics degree. Career opportunity in statistics is more on historical, looking backwards. So someone who can do specific aspects of mathematics rather than the well-rounded ones. So things like predictive analytics, things like forecasting, things like using hypothesis testing, things like developing frequency distribution. So there's a lot of work that happens in a management consulting career. So to give you a little bit of an insight, what a management consultant does, which is who I am. Like I'm a management consultant. So what I do is I go in and I assist organizations solve strategic problems, right? So they come to us, and I go onto a project and they say, well, how do we increase our productivity of the employees, right? We're losing people, we're not hiring the right people. How do we actually ensure that we've got the right people doing the right job? So as part of that, you can understand there's a lot of data that you need to look at. You need to look at exit interviews, you need to look at engagement surveys, you need to look at what are people saying, why are people leaving, what is the market saying? So we go in and look at LinkedIn to work out what social media is saying about those companies. So there's a lot that happens. And having a statistical background always helps, because you are able to formulate the question properly and then answer that properly. So if you cannot formulate the question, like what's your hypothesis? Why do you think that's happening? What are 2 or 3 reasons as to why a company might be losing employees, if you cannot formulate that question, you don't know what to solve for, right? Because there's too many unknowns here. So essentially, a career in statistics might give you that first sort of leverage point where you go in and work in a banking, but the understanding of the theory and the knowledge of what statistics is will also help you another 5 to 6 years down the line. So if it's a career that you're looking for, which requires this sort of forward thinking, problem solving, mathematical driven, then a career opportunity in statistics is extremely exciting. Mathematics and statistics often go hand in hand. So if you're doing one in maths, then you're probably doing one in stats. But at the end of the day, look, I mean, either or, not a problem. Maths is probably a bit broader. Statistics is a bit more narrower. Okay, so the next really exciting one that I wanted to present to you was a career opportunity in aviation. So as a commercial pilot, right? So if you want to become a commercial pilot, what are the options? You can study from IGRUA, you can study from Ray Bareilly, Rajiv Gandhi Academy of Aviation Technology, National Flying Training Institute. I know a lot of you are considering this as an option, although I'm not sure whether this is the right time to do it. But as a commercial pilot, it's so exciting because you can travel internationally, regionally, go to the most rural parts of the world, as well as to the biggest urban settlements. You can be a corporate pilot rather than a commercial pilot. So a commercial pilot is a pilot who is flying planes for a lot of people. A corporate pilot is basically flying corporate jets, right? So essentially you're flying for either a company or a person, like high net worth individuals. You can also fly medical or air emergency planes. And then as an extension of that career in aviation as a commercial pilot, you could also, the other option that you have is an aircraft maintenance engineer. So basically you're helping maintain the biggest and the most complex engineering feat there is. So a plane, if you think about the science that goes into it and the engineering, it's remarkable, right? I mean, it's so heavy and it gets up in the air in 10 seconds. So the maintenance schedule of that is absolutely phenomenal. Really great attention to detail, really great pride in what you do, and an opportunity to set yourself up. The other thing that I want to throw in there is, having done an engineering degree and an MBA degree, I can now start connecting some of the things that I studied in engineering. One thing that you've got to really always remember is, if you are coming in from an overly represented group of people, so for example, you are a computer science engineer, which everybody does. If you are a computer science engineer and then you're trying to make your next step in life, you're competing with hundreds, possibly thousands of students who are very similar to yourself. If you have a background in aviation and then in 3 years, 4 years time, you want to do an MBA, it is very easy to set yourself up, because you can say that I'm different from how everybody else has looked at it. So one of the biggest things that you need to consider when you think about doing an MBA in 4 years, 5 years time is, how do you build your profile up, right? One of the easiest ways to build your profile up is actually to pick up a career that you are passionate about, because this is not something that you're going to do anyways for more than 3-4 years, but this helps you understand and go on the path that when it's time for your MBA applications, you can say, look, I'm different from others. I did not go in and do a computer science degree. I went and studied aviation. And after that, I became a commercial pilot. You know, with a career like that, having done a study in aviation and becoming a commercial pilot, you're probably one out of 2 people in the whole application cohort, even for a school like Harvard or Stanford. So, you know, chances of you being selected because you bring to the table something which a lot of other people cannot bring is extremely high. And therefore that increases your chance of getting admission into one of the toughest and best MBA schools in the world. So again, I'm not saying that that's what you do. You get into aviation because you want to do an MBA. I'm just saying that if you think outside the box, but you know where you want to go, there are ways in which you can get there without going through the traditional pathways. I'm not saying computer science is bad. Absolutely not. I have done computer science work. I have a lot of respect for that, but I'm just saying might not necessarily be for you. If it's not, don't give up. Don't just try and do computer science from a really low ranked school because that's the only thing that you're aware of. You're better off going in and doing a degree in aviation, because if that's what you're excited about. Salary ranges, again, 5 lakh to 10 lakh, which is pretty large. And a lot of people don't know that, but in aviation, you can potentially earn 2 to 3 times as much as you're earning in in a basic sort of engineering degree. Obviously, I mean, it depends on where you're doing it from. If you're studying from an IIT and then you want to do a master's degree, obviously the opportunities are massive. But if you're, rather than doing a small, rather than doing a degree from a smaller college, if you get an opportunity to do a degree in aviation and that's what you're passionate about, absolutely, by all means, go for it. This is a really interesting one and pretty close to my heart because ethical hacking is another new career that's come up. By this, I'm not talking about you learn how to be a hacker, but it's basically you use the skills that you have learned during your studies, which is why the word ethical is extremely important, to help organizations improve their network security. So you can be like a network security engineer, network security administrator, security consultant, but all this means is you are helping companies preserve data. I don't know if you've heard this, but maybe about 50 to 70 years back, people used to say that property is the real gold. So essentially what that means is if you have invested in properties, you're doing really well. Then back about 20, 30 years back, they said oil is the real gold, because that's where if you invest in oil as a company, you're investing in a really low supply, high demand market. But now it's data. So every company wants to protect their data. Every company is extremely protective about its customer data. You can be sued, you can lose your license. There could be so many different implications of you losing your data. And therefore, having an education in ethical hacking, which is kind of extension of computer science, but you could focus on that, there's a fantastic opportunity for you to be working in improving network security for organizations. There are some colleges that provide certifications that do not, that there is no real degree that you can do. It's often an extension of your computer science degree, that, like I was saying, but there are some Indian School of Ethical Hacking, EC Council, and then, NIIT ethical hacking. A lot of the times you get into ethical hacking because you're interested in that and you learn what people are doing and how they're managing it, but then you get better with it by practice. There are many videos and many texts that you have out there, and people who are really, really smart, you can imagine how much money you'll be charging if you're a really good ethical hacker, because you have the key to solving one of the world's toughest problem. All right, the other career that I wanted to talk to you about briefly was forensic science. With the advent of crime and with the advent of technology and how technology is being used in the context of crime detection and prevention, forensic science has become extremely important. The obvious ones: forensic scientist, toxicologist, CSI, anthropologist, ballistics expert, polygraph examiner, and so on and so forth. Like, forensic science is becoming really massive in India. 5 years back, it wasn't as much, but because technology has improved so much and technology has become so scalable and so cheap for others to procure, most crime fighting units, including the government departments one and also private ones, have now started investing heavily in recruiting forensic science, getting the latest technology. It's a really cool field to be working in, and something that it requires good problem solving, good ways of thinking, good analytical ability, and being able to understand and get to a proper solution, having considered a lot of options. And therefore, this is a really, really strong field. The top colleges are Delhi University, Punjab University. The only thing that you've got to remember is most universities do not provide it at an undergrad level for obvious reasons. I mean, this is a bit advanced for an undergraduate level, but there are certain institutes where you can start here, or on the other hand, you can do a maths or a stats degree and then move into forensic science. Sometimes you can also do a BSc computer science degree and move into forensic science if you want to get into forensic science using technology and digital. So digital forensic science, right? So where you look at pattern recognition, where you look at trawling through heaps and heaps of emails to come to the to get to the baseline. Computer applications and IT, slightly different from your pure computer science. So this is really good course for someone who wants to do computer science but does not want to necessarily commit to either a 4-year rigorous program or they know very well that, look, my interest is in IT or information technology, and I wanted to get into coding. So, purely focused. This is a lot more focused than computer science, and therefore it doesn't go on for that long. And this is not necessarily like an engineering degree. You can, as I said, you can become a software developer, network administrator, database administrator, systems analyst, web designer, app developer, right? So I don't know if you guys have ever been to any of these freelance or elance websites, but if you go in there, you'll see there's hundreds and hundreds of people saying that we can build your website for you, we can develop your app for you. None of them generally have a computer science degree. They either have a diploma degree or they have a certificate. So you could do any of that. And there's quite a few universities all across. They're spread all across because there's a lot of excitement and a lot of demand for this. You can get into whether it's Christ University or it's St. Xavier's or it's Symbiosis, Madras Christian College. There's a few universities here. These are the sort of top ones where you can get in, and your average salary is slightly on the lower end compared to an aviation career, for example, but it's still about that sort of 80% level of a computer engineer or a software engineer. Animation and graphics, another really exciting one. I don't know if you guys have seen the latest Avenger movie, but I'm pretty sure you saw how many people from India was working on that. There are so many companies now that have cropped up over the last 5 years, particularly 3 years. And if you look at the post-film credit section of the Avengers latest movie, you'll see that there's at least 50 different companies, not people, but 50 different companies who are mentioned in the post-credit sequence. And that's because this is becoming so popular. For one, you don't really need to go and study too much apart from learning a little bit of art and learning a little bit of design. So you can do this fairly quickly. You can do this without the need for complex setups. You just need a software. And if you have it in you can do it. The software and the technology has also progressed to a point where you can design motion pictures quite easily. I mean, graphic design, game design is a massive, massive field. I mean, trust me when I say this, a lot of the smartest kids in Australia, the US, Canada, people that I've worked with, my students, are selecting to go down the animation and graphics path because not only is it quicker to get in, but it's also extremely popular and well paying as a career. So game design, 3D modeling, flash design, storyboarding is something that you can use in your animation and graphics career, but then you can translate that into a marketing career or an advertising career. Cartoon design, again, it sits in really well with if you want to be a social media like expert. So you need to come up with some cool and funky ways by which you can present different concepts and different discussion points. So how can you do it through a cartoon? What's your storytelling method? What's the best way for you to get the message across without making it overly complex? These are things that are very, very essential in today's world. So whether you study an animation and graphics degree, but then you don't necessarily stay in that same course, you can study that and then you can just move on. That's another way in which you can do this, right? I mean, but the skills and the knowledge that you learn in an animation and graphics degree is very useful in social media marketing, advertisement, media houses. So National Institute of Design, I think everyone's heard of that. That's really, really, really good institute. Birla Institute of Technology in Noida. There's one that I personally like a lot, which is why I've put that down, which is Whistling Woods International. It's a really, really good program. It's a bit underrated. They don't really promote themselves as much as I think they should, but the course is really good. And average salary, look, 4 lakhs, but trust me when I say this, you'll earn a lot more than that if you are doing your work on your own. So you can go and work for 2-3 years, earn a steady salary, and then after that, move on to becoming a self-employed person. If that's what you want to do, if you get excited by a career of managing your own time, of a career of being accountable for what you're doing, having enough time on your hands, family, life, work, balance, then this is a really good career opportunity for you to start initially and then make your way into something a lot more of an expert level. All right, this is the last one that I had in terms of another option for you to consider, physical science. These are, and there's a way in which I have managed to bring the story together. So this is another one where you would actually be almost like an individual person. So you've heard people working in astronomy, and then astrobiology, astrochemistry, geology, mineralogy. So these are basically picking up any one sort of physical science areas and really focusing on that. So obviously, because there are so many different options, it's really hard to nail down what the different colleges are, but I've given you some flavor, as you see below, based on some of those more popular courses. Astronomy, for example, people think it's just a matter of looking at, it's similar to astrology. It's not. They're millions of miles apart. They're like chalk and cheese. There's absolutely no overlap. It just isn't the same common construct, but they're not the same thing. Geology is so big, particularly in countries where you have strong mining, strong construction engineering focus. So countries like Canada, countries that have a lot of resource, like Australia, like even China for that matter. Marine geology, like I can't tell you how many people I know in Australia who are exceptional in marine geology, and they earn about twice as much as a computer science guy does. But your application of that is using all of these kind of different things that you've studied in your specialization within physical science, but then the application is what pays you the money. So when you get into the course, often people think, I'm not really sure where I'm going, what am I studying for, what's my career? And my advice to them when they get into the program is don't worry about that. Just focus on whatever you're excited about. There are millions of opportunities after physical science, as in studying physical science, right? So whether you want to pick up something like geology and you're really excited about that and you get into one of the IIT programs. Now, obviously, entry into the IIT program depends on the joint entrance examination. So, you need to get a certain mark there. But irrespective of what that is, once you get in and you start studying geology, by the time you finish your degree, which is in another 4 years' time, the whole world has changed. The rate at which the world is changing is now about 5 years for a major overhaul of what we know. Like think about it, 10 years back, 20 years back, when I was in my college days, iPhone wasn't there, Facebook wasn't there, internet on your phone wasn't there. We just had Nokia cell phones to make phone calls and messages. And now you show a Nokia cell phones. If I show it to you, you'll go, whoa, what is it? I've never seen this before. Why do you need something as bulky of that? So if you think about what's happened in the last 20 years, all the companies that have come in, whether that's a Facebook or that's an Airbnb, that's a Uber, or that's a Google was there, but Google is now a different beast altogether. All of these companies have evolved, and they have evolved significantly, but because of that evolution, people who could not have a career in something like marine geology, right? So, for example, if your interest lies in the study of underlying rocks and sand and water, and you enjoy staying near the water, you now have a career in marine geology, and in 5 to 6 years after your degree, if you're studying in a place like Australia, for example, you could potentially earn anywhere in the excess of $110,000, which is about 55 lakhs if I convert that into Indian currency. So you can see that's unthinkable, right? I mean, a career which is like marine geology, which does not require you to necessarily study for something, but you can just go with your passion. The problem with most students that I see is not that they don't know what their passion is, but they have forced their mind to take their passion out. So if you ask them, what do you want to do? They'll just go engineering. And you go, why? Well, that's a stable career. No, that's not true anymore. I'm giving you examples, hopefully through this process, where I've explained to you, there are so many different careers that you can pick up, but pick up something that you're passionate with. Because if you are, then you'd be really good with that. We've all heard this when we were growing up, and this has been true in the last 10, 15, 20 years, but it's very true now, because you can actually have a career in meteorology, as a cartographer. So you think, well, everything is on Google Maps. What do you need it for? No, it's not, because cartographers are so fundamentally important for urban city planning, for town planning. I don't know if you've heard of this, but the new concept that's coming up with cities is known as smart cities. So cities are going to be transformed from the urban setting that they have now to being a smart city. So you would know where people are going. You would know what hospitals are available. You would know when the next bus is coming. You would have a city that is controlling its population, its pollution, its environmental impact. How can you design a city or plan for the urban development if you haven't, or if you don't have people who understand how to read maps? So it's really complex, right? I mean, Google Maps gives you a 2D. version. It doesn't give you a 3D version. But when you want to build something, I want to dig deep into the ground. Well, how much can you dig? You don't know, because you need to be able to read the maps. So really, really important for something that is booming. Have a look at that. Construction companies, disaster management professionals. So disaster prevention, relief, recovery, and preparedness. Like as an example, in Australia, you have the bushfire season. I'm pretty sure you guys saw what happened in November, December of this year before COVID. Sorry, November, December last year before COVID. Australia lost close to 1 billion wildlife. So every year there's this bushfire season, just like there is a drought season and then there's a flood season. So you need to prepare for that. And there's so many people who need to be able to understand how can you prepare a country and a city and a suburb for disaster. Like first, how do you prevent it? How do you make them aware? Then how do you recover should a disaster happen? So these kind of professions, and particularly in an economy that the world is undergoing now. I mean, if you forget COVID and go back to pre-February time, the world had experienced fantastic economic growth, technological growth. Societies have grown at a speed that has never been seen before. And yes, COVID has slowed us down, but it's another 6 months before things go back again. And if anything, right now, a profession like a disaster management professionals, they don't have to worry about going out and fixing up landslides or what's going to happen with bushfire, but they do need to worry about, well, how do we keep cities safe? Another example, Melbourne right now, Melbourne is seeing about 400 COVID cases a day, which is pretty much non-existent anywhere else in Australia. So the entire military and disaster recovery personnel are on foot in Melbourne, trying to help the city get back onto its feet. So as the world gets more uncertain, there are many more opportunities that will keep coming up. So the average salary obviously depends on the stream of study, but if you're looking from an Indian opportunity perspective, straight after your degree, you're probably looking at that sort of 20 to 35,000. And that, if you are an expert in that, like if you're an expert cartographer, then the sky's your limit. You can actually have 3 or 4 times salary growth in 10 years, which is unheard of in a field like computer science. So when you're selecting a field, essentially in your mind, you should be thinking about, what is it that I want to do? What's my passion? And then if you want to be really smart and say, well, which one is going to give me most return? Then you've got to think about in which field is the competition not that prominent? And at the same time, which field is extremely popular or going to be popular given everything else that you see in the world, right? So when we consult with students and we help them understand where they should be focusing on, what's coming up around the corner and how good a career profession is this, that's the framework we use. So it's a 3-pronged framework. What are you good at? What's the market doing? Where's the competition? If you're able to figure that out, you can come up with a career pathway that is really good for yourself, but it's not overly competitive to the point where the benefit of you working on your passion is gone. That concludes the section on all the presentation of the different courses that I think are really critical for you to be aware of, just not a medicine or an engineering degree. This is like an overview if you wanted to. This is basically everything that I've spoken about, plus a few things. As you see, there's an engineering course where there's physics, there's chemistry, mathematics, stats, aviation, ethical hacking. I haven't necessarily and intentionally spoken about merchant navy because the pathways are a bit more technical and we need to go into like each of those pathways are slightly, because it relies upon your knowledge of technology and science, because obviously an engineer or an electrotechnical officer within a merchant navy, you're focusing on the engineering that is relevant from a submarine, for example, or that's relevant from a ship or a warship. And that's really different from what you've done. The other reason why merchant navy or working for the Air Force is kind of slightly different to put on the scale out here is because you get into the program and then they take you through the different stages, right? So they teach you what's coming up next. What do you need to study first? So it's like a finishing college, but there's obviously lots that you can do over there within as a merchant navy career. And then you've got industrial design, forensic science, computer applications, fashion technology, another thing that I have not spoken about, but you can understand how big the fashion technology world is going, right? I mean, now, I don't know if you've seen this, but even the face masks that are now mandatory to be put on, they are now being designed. And it's fashion design is not, it's no longer about just sitting down and drawing something. Fashion design is about using the right fashion sense, using the right technology. What material do you use it on? How does this fit onto the overall brand? How does this work with, and I'm just talking about face masks, but as you can understand, right? I mean, it's clothes, it's designer bags, it's even cars, for example. How do you make something stand out? And then you've got retail manager. So people who manage retail outlets like big convenience stores or big shopping centers. Merchandiser is someone who looks into how much material you require, like so for example, if you're designing leather bags, then how many kilograms of leather do I need? What kind of dye do I need? So that's the person. Stylist is the one who actually designs it. And textile designer is the one who designs it on the textile. A visual merchandiser is a really interesting career that's come up. And this is a person who can use the concept of merchandising, but more from an optics perspective, right? So someone who's not necessarily going back and doing the supply demand mapping, but someone who thinks about, well, what do we broadly need? What's the market looking for? Like in 5 years' time, what do we think is going to be the dominant color? So fashion technology also was not really that popular, gaining popularity. Defense, I've covered a few, but that's like a seminar on its own. Animation and graphics, physical science, and architecture. So all of these careers. So if you see, it took me 2 slides to cover these 2, but as you can see, there's essentially so much that you can do, right? It's not just one. I mean, engineering is like one bullet point of one of these boxes. So that's all about studying in India. There's a few other slides that I've got which talk about studying abroad, and I'll try and breeze through that because I think we are almost at the end of the 1 hour time. But let me just take you through this. So there's a few global programs. So people who do not want to study natural science like chemistry, biology, or physics, pure science is a way by which you can do this. I've mainly focused on the US market for now because I think that's the most popular one, but I've got a similar sort of information deck for the Australian market. As you see, the colleges on the right, for example, MIT, Stanford, Harvard, Caltech, Cornell, these are the top ones. Their tuition fee is about $48,000, $50,000, and they require an SAT and a TOEFL for their undergrad studies. Some of the other courses that are also extremely popular. So what I've done is I've looked at all the different courses that are there, and I've looked at most popular ones from Indians. So Bachelor of Biology from Caltech, Bachelor of Science from Physics at Stanford, Biological Chemistry, BSc in Chemistry from Johns Hopkins. So these are all really global programs that if you think that you want to go out and be a global citizen and just settle down abroad in the US for some time, but you don't want to go in and do an MS degree or an engineering degree, you can look at pure science, you can look at natural science equivalent in the US. Obviously, engineering is the most popular one. So STEM studies, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This is one of the most popular and best available streams in the US. And then for STEM students, they have now started looking at practical training periods. So what that means is anyone who is studying STEM can actually go out and implement what they're learning in STEM. So STEM, thinking about making STEM more popular among female students, thinking about how can you make STEM more application focused. Best engineering universities in the US, again, MIT, Stanford, Harvard, Caltech, and Yale. I mean, there's no reason why I've left out schools like Carnegie Mellon or schools like UCLA, but these are just the one as they stand as of now. As you'll see, the courses are pretty similar in terms of how much it's going to cost you. And I've listed a few of the other more popular degrees from other universities in the US. All right, the top 10 universities in the US for computer science. These are just my views along with some other rankings. MIT, Stanford, Harvard, Caltech goes on all the way to Johns Hopkins, and some other universities which are not ranked within the top 10. So I've not looked at just one ranking. I've looked at, broadly speaking, where do people want to go for computer science. So if you're looking at the top 4 or 5 universities, they are extremely hard to get into. But if you really want a career in research or a career in working as a product designer in Samsung or Nokia or Facebook, you're probably looking at those kind of careers. Not to mean that you can't get there without others, but absolutely you can. But these are the sort of higher ranked computer science programs. Some of the other ones that I want to mention, Carnegie Mellon is a really good one. Illinois Urbana-Champaign, really good. Cornell, very good. It's an Ivy League school, and Columbia University. So we focus on helping students go in for their SAT exam and subsequently to study in the US. So we do that all the time. These are the universities that we generally think are not only really hard to get into, but also the ones that have the best career opportunity after graduation, as in after completion of graduation degree. We're getting to the end of this. Global programs, cost-wise, from vary state to state. As you see, generally speaking, public universities are a lot cheaper than private universities. Like public universities are the ones that run on government grants. So on a per year basis, you're looking at anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000 for a public one. But private universities are often an example of a public university would be University of California. So that's a university that the California state represents, and you have University of California at Los Angeles, at San Diego, at Berkeley. These ones are the more popular ones, and private universities are obviously not the University of something or something state university. Those are public. All the other ones are private universities. Obviously, they're about sometimes anywhere between 1.5 to 2 times the expense. And then it depends on whether you're a domestic student or an international student. The same construct also applies for studying in Australia, for example. So if you want to come in and study in Australia, and I know that I'm not getting into that level of detail, but just to give you an idea, as an international student, you would be paying almost 2.5 to 3 times what a domestic student would be paying. But the beauty of studying in Australia is that you can be a domestic student if you come in over here with a permanent residence or a citizenship. Unlike in the US, you'll always be an international student unless you have a prior US citizenship or a green card. But in Australia, you can get your citizenship and then come here and do your degree really cheap. And often there's more scholarship for domestic students as well. That's all. So hopefully that was useful. I'm just going to stop sharing, and then I think we are now ready for questions. Arun.
Thank you so much, Indradeep. Thank you so much. You can probably remove your, stop sharing your slides. That's perfect. Okay, we've got 100 plus questions. Okay, a couple of things that if you allow, Indradeep, I would like to emphasize on. Yes, it's a lovely experience today. We are having around 93 cities attending. Students from 93 cities attending today's session. This includes some of the some 8 odd locations outside of India. Please understand that the objective of today's session was essentially to give you the spectrum. In the August schedule, you will see us picking up some of these careers and going deep into it, right? So with this, I would now start taking the questions, right? We would have a limitation to the number of questions that we can take. We would make an attempt that, after the session is over, we are able to club the questions and probably share the responses, but allow us a little time for that, Yes, so if you allow, we will start, we probably take 3 questions from the Q&A section. As mentioned before we start the session, I would take questions from Q&A and not from the chat. So if you have a question, please submit it here. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Subramaniam, for your kind words. Do we need chemistry for computer science? Indradeep, this is a question for you. Do we need chemistry for computer science?
Sorry, could you just type that? I think I lost the first word. Do you need what?
Do we need chemistry for computer science?
Yeah. So Look, you generally, so we're talking about whether you need a particular course before you apply for a degree, right? So what you're studying right now, then you obviously are studying physics, chemistry, and math. So it's a more common option for you to have chemistry as part of your study. When you study computer science, as in when you get into the computer science program, then very few schools would require you to study chemistry. Most of them will have a first year level mathematics and physics course. So no for chemistry, but maths and physics, absolutely yes.
Thank you. The next question is, I have PCM with economics. What are the careers open up for me? A small request, Indradeep. I think the 2 slides where you have bundled all the careers, if you can bring that up, students might find it useful, but then I'm leaving it to your judgment.
Yeah, sure. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
So this one, right?
Yeah, you might want to toggle it based on the question.
Yeah.
A lot of these questions are coming in with combinations, so back to you. Yeah.
So the question was economics with physics and maths as a career, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So look, physics and maths with an economics is a fantastic career. I mean, not only does it give you access to the more traditional careers, so things like you can get into an economics career like being an economist, you can get into a financial career like being a business analyst, you can be a systems analyst, but also it gives you the option to look at what you can do maybe in another 5 years' time. So you can get into a basic entry-level economics program and economics career, and then in another 5 years' time, that really makes its way into, like, for example, if you have a physics, mathematics, and economics degree, it's probably the second most popular choice for companies like McKinsey. I don't know if you know who McKinsey is, but McKinsey is the world's largest and most eminent management consulting firm. The 2 groups of people that they're extremely always passionate about and get hired very quickly are either a finance/law background or a physics/economics background. Because what you do have is you've got a combination of both, right? Physics is more baseline study, baseline understanding, baseline knowledge. And economics is an application of that knowledge. So not only do you understand the theory, you also understand the application. So if you have a career like physics, mathematics, and economics, go for it. Like career in commerce, career in finance, career in statistics, and subsequently as a management consultant.
Yeah, one career, that I keep talking about is computational finance or financial engineering. If you have a combination of economics, mathematics, and programming, it's an awesome career to pursue. Please understand that most of the careers are multidisciplinary now, right? Now, this is responding to some of the people who are saying, I need something only in mathematics. The new age careers that you're going to go into are multidisciplinary, and you'll probably need to broad base and look at those in that fashion. The next question, Indradeep, is BSc Computer Science computer better or BCA?
Sorry, I've got to unmute myself. Is BSc Computer Science better or BCA?
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, I mean, the difference often lies in where you decide to do it from. So if you're doing it from a place, it depends on what you want to do after the degree, right? So if you want to go in and do a master's degree or a research degree, then obviously a BSc Computer Science allows you that natural pathway that an IT or a BCA degree does not. So a BCA degree is often a combination of a BBM and a computer science. So BCA degrees were not really there, 20 years back or 15 years back. Or maybe they're 20 years, but maybe 25, 30 years back, they weren't really there. So a BCA degree is really interesting because it teaches you how to use computer science as an application pathway so that you can make a company can make commercial success out of a computer science program. So essentially saying, you've got a product, can you sell it? But that's different from a BSc Computer Science, which is more a traditional program. So if you want to get into research after your undergrad degree, then a BSc computer science is probably more viable. But if you're looking to get into a job, then it kind of comes down into what kind of college you're working at, what kind of college do you study, are you studying at, and the companies that come in to hire from the different courses within those two colleges.
Okay. Okay. Sorry for that noise. So another one comes in, what about just maths alone? Does it have a scope?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. It is an absolutely brilliant career. Maths on its own is an absolutely brilliant career. However, having said that, maths is the basis for everything. So you cannot really have a career just on maths. Like you can go and study maths, but you've got to study something else along with it. So whether you study maths and its application in finance and economics, or you study maths and its application in business and marketing, or you study maths and its application in physics and chemistry. So it depends on what your passion truly lies, right? So we understand from the question that you really like studying mathematics. So you can start with mathematics, but then the question is, what do you want to do with mathematics? Do you want to go and work in a economic advisor? So, you come up with reports and you come up with research, or do you want to study maths and become a physicist, or do you want to study maths and become a marketer or a business consultant? So depending on what you want to do, you would obviously have to pick up courses that supplement the core maths degree that you're studying, because otherwise it gets too deep, and you don't need to be as deep as that. Like you don't need, like there's only so much you can study with, let's say, calculus, right? I mean, there's only so many ways you can differentiate and integrate, which you kind of know by heart by now. So if you study a little bit more, you'll know like what else is there to know, and why would you need to know that? Like you don't really need to get into that level of detail unless there is another next step to you. So my suggestion for whoever's asked the question is have a think about what comes next after the maths degree, and then build your career and your course selection around that.
Small request, while we allow you to ask questions as anonymous, trust me, we are not, we understand the sensibilities, or we have the sensibilities of not naming, but then it helps if we have your name. Now, this is a slightly personal question, and you can choose not to respond, Indradeep. It could be either a parent or a student. As I'm asking this question, I'm taking your permission to launch a poll. I kind of missed it out. I would request everyone to take the poll as while we are answering this question. The question is, and this is to you, Indradeep, what was your economic status before going abroad?
So I came abroad twice. One was to do my engineering degree, and one was to do my MBA degree. Economic status wasn't really that different. Like when I came and did my engineering degree, it was like I had to rely upon like student loans to come here and study. Like I'm not from a family which could afford international education on its own, and also because I came from India, right? I mean, if I was living abroad, then maybe we were in a position, but I wasn't. And then when I came in to do my MBA, then I again had to take a loan, but obviously before I did my MBA, I had 5 years of work experience, at which point as a family, we had saved us enough to keep us going for some time. But it's extremely challenging. And a lot of the times I wish I knew what I was getting into. Not that I would have changed it, but I would have been a more prepared person. So in short, financially, not really very solid, but it can be done. Like, I mean, I don't come from a business family or an extremely rich family, but once you make up your mind where you want to go, it's not that hard. And with the level of support that's around in today's world, I mean, it's actually not an excuse anymore saying that we don't know. But yeah, financially, that's where I come from. Arun, you might be on mute.
Yes, my apologies. So I kind of closed the poll. Yes, 82% of the students are students, and most of them are in class 11 and 12. Okay. one second. I'm so sorry. I kind of lost track. There's a question which says, if I want to become an IAS, which engineering degree is best?
If I wanted to be an IAS.
Yeah.
Yep. So look, I mean, studying for an IAS and appearing and becoming an IAS is not necessarily linked to what engineering degree you do. If you want to be IAS as in the long term, then you should pick up a degree that helps you perform the task that you're interested in. So, you know, after you become an IAS, there's obviously something that you want to do. So think about what is it that you want to do. Is it a social cause? Is it improvement of infrastructure? Is it working with the financial part of the government? Whichever part is really exciting and interesting to you, after your IAS, after you become an IAS, you should try and do that in your undergrad. So it helps you understand and appreciate what you're solving for. If you, like, for example, if you don't know what nuclear physics is, and then I tell you, well, how do we solve the biggest problem in nuclear physics? You say, well, I don't even know what the biggest problem is. So the undergrad degree will teach you what the biggest problem is. And after an IAS, you'll be able to use your experience and your knowledge, and with the help of everybody else around you, solve that big problem. So there is no real good answer, as in real good career choice or selection of course. Obviously, if you go in and study computer science from an IIT, that gives you a big brand, but it's not necessary, and definitely not necessary from an IAS perspective, apart from whatever help you get in the selection of the program.
There's a question which says, can you talk about gaming as a career?
Oh, I would love to. Look, I mean, gaming as a career is a really interesting one, because there could be at least 5 or 6 different things that you could do as a gamer, not a gamer, as a gaming career. But they are typically from a sales or marketing perspective, understanding who the market is. So understanding who are you building the product for, technology that will help you. And by technology, I'm talking about programming at the core, right? I mean, really, really good with programming. Because as you can understand, the programming languages that you do study or will study in your engineering colleges or science colleges are not going to be helpful as much, because C and Java is not used to write programs for computer games. So you need to study specifically for that. Then you need to know what people look for. So it's not just programming. In a normal programming construct, you just go in there, you write a program and you send it over to someone, and then you don't worry about it. In a gaming environment, you have to worry about everything. What happens when the network drops off? What happens about data security? What happens if there's a hack? What happens if, because it's a like generally computer programming is used to solve business problems. Whereas for a gaming career, computer programs are used to solve a passion for someone, right? Someone wants to be a gamer. Someone wants to spend a lot of time. That's their hobby. That's what they like doing. So for them, it's an emotional buy. And for an emotional buy, it's not necessarily what is the best and the quickest program, but it's which one gives them the best experience. So the kind of career that you have as within the gaming is really fulfilling, because you learn how to understand your market segment. You learn different softwares. You learn how to design and develop a software for really specific purpose, as opposed to like if you build a software for for a grocery shop, you don't really care whether it looks very fancy or not, or whether you can click and move very quickly. But for a gaming, that's the experience. As people get better and better and better with gaming, they expect the software to keep up. So your learning is massive. And if you have the opportunity to work in a gaming company, whether that's as an intern or that's after you finished your year 12 and waiting to start on your next journey, I would very strongly recommend it. Some of the best career developers that I know come in from a gaming background. And if you are applying for a job at Google, for example, in their SFO San Francisco office, if you have a gaming background, you're probably 5 times more likely to get selected.
This is an interesting one. Okay, meanwhile, while I'm taking my question, some of the students are asking for your email ID. If you're comfortable, please type it in the chat window for everyone to see.
Absolutely. I'm going to go to everyone, all panelists and attendees.
That's right.
So I'm more than happy to give you my number. That's my Australian number. If you do want to get in touch with me on WhatsApp, feel free to do so. Otherwise, that's my email address. Can everyone see this?
Yes, everyone can see this.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Whoa, there's so
Okay,
many
so,
yeses. It's gone now. Somebody has to scroll up again.
No worry, that's a problem for you, not for them, because they don't see each other's chat. That's the reason we kind of
Right, okay.
disabled it. So it's just a distraction for you, not for others.
That's all right.
Right? This is an interesting question, and I think as children, all of us, especially the multi-talented ones, had it. I have interest in aeronautical engineering. And I'm reading it verbatim, right? And I also like computer science, as in ethical hacking and programming. How should I go about, and what should I be doing after class 12?
Okay, so let's break it down. So you've got interest in aeronautical engineering. I'm obviously by that, what I understand is that you like planes, because I don't think unless I'm wrong, most students at year 11 or 12 do not really understand as much of aeronautical engineering as the schools might like them to think, or as they think they do. To be honest, I know this because I know a lot of people working in Boeing and a lot of people working in Lockheed Martin, designing not just commercial planes, but also fighter planes. So I know exactly what they're working on. And I know that you probably do not know enough about that. So I'll give you a little bit of insight. Computer science, the fact that you know an ethical hacking and programming, how should I go about it, and what should I be doing after year 12? So look, ultimately, the main two career choices that you have in front of you, aeronautical engineering or computer science, I would strongly recommend that you think about what it is within aeronautical engineering that you're excited about, and whether you are looking for an aeronautical engineering career just for the glamour of it, or is that something that really excites you? And the key question to ask yourself at this stage is, why am I interested in aeronautical engineering and not in physics? Because ultimately everything about aeronautical engineering, or 90% of that, is going to be about physics, whether it's Bernoulli's principle, whether it's projectile motion, whether it's third law of physics, whatever it is, ultimately they'll all be linked from physics. The only bit about chemistry that you learn is how do you actually design planes with chemicals and paints that stop being detected by the radar, that can help move faster. What kind of paint and chemical should I provide? But when you get into aeronautical engineering, if that's what you want to do long term, like not just for 3-4 years so that you can do an MBA, but that's what you want to do forever, then that's a really good career opportunity. You just have to be careful that you select the right college and know what your 3-year, 5-year, and 10-year plans are. On the other hand, computer science is really broad. So if you don't really know what you want to get into, but you like problem solving and you like analytical thinking and you like writing programs, then computer science could be a way into it. Now, the only thing that I'll say is it's often easy for you to transition from a computer science to an aeronautical engineering. So, which a lot of people are not aware of. So you can start in computer science, but you obviously need to start in a college that provides both computer science and aeronautical engineering. If you're doing it in India, if you're doing it outside India, then you can transfer within colleges without a problem. So if you get in, do computer science for a little bit, and then go, you know what, I really, really like aeronautical engineering, and you find out a bit about that, you can easily transfer credits and move. In terms of ethical hacking and programming, that's, as I don't know if you remember when we were covering that, you can easily do that on your side as a hobby. And if you're really good at it, you'll be called up by people. You don't need to go and look for work. People will come and approach you.
Okay, so I'm giving the speaking rights to Rishabh Zobalia. Rishabh, you can ask your questions. And 3 more questions, after this. I think we've really short the time. I hope it's okay with you, Indradeep, if you can.
Yeah, 100%.
So the number of questions that I can see right now is 175. And I know we will not be able to take it in today's session. Let me see if we can actually create a repository of FAQs. Rishabh, over to you.
Can you tell me more about hospitality management? Means which subjects and qualifications and like that I should do?
Yeah, so hospitality management is a very, very prominent career in places where, if you're thinking about, so hospitality can be broken up into a few different ways, right? So hospitality could be hospitality and tourism. It could be hospitality and restaurants. It could be hospitality and hotels. So depending on where you want to go, so hospitality management within the hotel sector is basically a hotel management. Hospitality management in the tourism sector is basically studying, getting a certificate to be like either a tour operator or to operate within the tourism industry. So the kind of, sorry?
I want to go in hotel management only. See, I want to pursue hotel management, hospitality management in hotels.
At the undergraduate level, Rishabh, or the postgraduate level? In fact, there are two parts of it. One, Rishabh, so there is a slight deviation, from our track. So this is more of a generic program that somebody doing PCM will please come in. I can actually put you to Andrew, who is actually a hospitality management expert, right?
Please, your voice is cutting. Your voice is cutting. Please repeat.
Okay.
Please repeat.
So, Rishabh, what I meant to say is, second, we have an expert from hospitality. We have Andrew J. Ryder, who comes in with over 2 decades of experience in hospitality management. While he's taking up he's an L&D guy, but then he spent most of his time in hospitality. Your question is more from an eligibility point or from a career?
Both means means what subjects and qualifications I need to take for it, and then means about that only I want to means what subjects I have to take for hospitality management.
So primarily, unlike in past where you needed to have science for the good hospitality management colleges, or hotel management is how it is typically called in India, right? Today you don't need to necessarily, because even at the entrance examination, the scientific aptitude has changed to service aptitude. In India, if that question is from an Indian context, IHM, which is considered to be the place by most of the students interested in hospitality, they look at service aptitude now. They don't look at service, scientific aptitude. So it has actually become agnostic to stream.
Okay.
Did it answer your part one of the question?
Yes, yeah.
As a career, if you're asking, I think this is, service sector per se, hospitality will continue to go strong. And I don't think, COVID will seriously curtail the opportunities from a medium to long-term perspective. In fact, hospitality will come in much, much more stronger with far better standards worldwide. So it will continue, and it is not that it's just a matter of time that we come back and we start traveling, or we start going outdoors. So it's a strong career. I don't think it's something that you need to be, from a COVID point, you need to look at. Even otherwise, hospitality as a sector is growing on an average in India at around 16% year on year, which is very, very healthy. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sumit, you have the speaking right, and one more after Sumit.
Yeah, so hello sir, I had a question that what is the name of the course for becoming a commercial pilot? Like, is it an undergraduation course or a post-graduation one? Thank you.
Yeah, so look, I mean, you can become, you need to study physics, chemistry, maths, but then you can do an undergrad program to become a commercial pilot.
Yeah, I had another question that what would be the best combination for aviation, like commercial pilot, for becoming a commercial pilot?
I think your grades are pretty important as well as combination. So when you are studying towards a commercial pilot, you're obviously at school, it's the basic that are available, right? So physics, chemistry, maths, English. But after that, when you go in and study, depending on what you want to focus on as a commercial pilot, depending on the type of vehicle that you're flying, so whether it's a wide body or a narrow body, so you'll get licenses in different ways, right? And then you need to simulate and go through different certificates through that. So it's all very regimented, right? So once you get into the program, they'll take you through what is required. But at a school level, it's your physics, chemistry, maths, English as a minimum. Unless I missed something, Arun.
Will PCM with geography help in some way for commercial pilot?
When you say help, you mean in admission, or will it be a minimum requirement?
Anyway.
Yeah, not necessary. I think physics, chemistry, maths, and English marks in those are probably as important as anything. But if you've studied something which is slightly not the most common, and you can explain how that will help, then that might be like 5% added weightage. But it's not the most common background.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, so you're eligible. If your question is, does geography makes you eligible, give you a advantage over others in the entrance test? Answer is no. At the same time, it doesn't affect your eligibility, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Correct.
thanks. Vedansh, that's... Oh, there is Sumedh. Sumedh, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I asked right now.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, my miss. Vedansh.
Yeah, so I am in class 9th and I want to pursue robotics in my future. So what are the necessary subjects I need to take to study robotics?
Yeah, so robotics is generally like considered to be an engineering course. It kind of varies, but most places it's considered to be an engineering course. It's almost considered to be like a mechatronics course, which is a combination of mechanical engineering and electrical engineering. So the requirements are going to be exactly the same as you would have for any of the standard engineering course. So physics, chemistry, maths, English, and really strong performance there. And then once you get into robotics, then there will be a lot of courses on electrical engineering, on electronics engineering, on telecommunication, on computer science, and on mechanical engineering. So those are the ones that you have to study after you get into your engineering program. But before that, PCM, English.
Okay, and also what are the best institutions I need to like take admission in?
You'll have to take this on the you know, one thing that in any of these sessions, you know, and it's a very honest confession, I would generally avoid getting into this college conversation, right? One, it is tricky, right? You know, the whole reason why we started off NPOCA was largely to help students like you understand that there is an ocean of careers, and we sensitize you. College selection becomes extremely tricky. It is a function of you know, one, we do not necessarily, and I'm not speaking from an Indradeep's point of view, but from a platform. College selection can have many more dimensions to it. You know, no institution is good, no institution is universally bad. It is always in the context of an individual. Second, you know, we have limited understanding there, so kind of avoiding it. Third, some of this is available on the web. What I think is not possible or is not really accessible is getting an Indradeep or an Andrew or for that matter, the last session, Professor Asha, you know, or getting a scientist to come and talk about careers in PCB. So for now, we'll have to restrict or limit it. Drop in an email and let's try and do it over there. Is that okay, Vedanshu?
Okay, yeah, it's fine. Thanks
so much. I appreciate it. This is the last one for the day. Yuyutsu, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Did I get your name right?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you. Please.
So my question was that seeing the current trends and job opportunities, do you think that mechanical engineering is a good career option to go for, and can it earn me a good amount of money?
I'll answer your first part. It is very good career. I mean, mechanical engineering, seeing what is happening, you think about the amount of automation that's happening, the amount of system programming and design thinking that's happening. So mechanical engineering as a career is extremely important. What has changed is the way in which mechanical engineering works. So it used to work in a more traditional sense where you would have mechanical engineering either to help you in the mining site or to help you access underwater. But now it's changed. Now mechanical engineering, as I was saying, is used in combination with computer science. For robotics, is used in combination with electronics. So as a career, if anything, mechanical engineering has grown 3 times or 4 times. In terms of whether you can make money, I think that, you know, the answer to that question is within yourself. If you are really passionate about it, then you'll be good at it. If you're good at it, then you'll get into a good school and get good grades and get into a good company and work well. And ultimately money follows, right? I mean, just like everybody says, don't run after money, run after your passion. But do people from mechanical engineering degrees earn a lot of money? Of course they do. But just like any profession, there are also a lot of people who do not earn any money. And that's because they just got in because their parents forced them to, or they got in because they didn't have enough information. So the intent for today's class or session is actually to let you know that, look, there's all these opportunities. Each one of them that you see on the screen out here will give you a really exciting career. But you have to be willing to go down and learn and do the hard yards. If you can, absolutely.
Thank you so much, sir.
No worries.
It's not, what do we do? You know, I am, sorry, it's almost becoming a habit now with me to say, sorry, we can't take more. I have taken much more than what I had requested Indradeep for. Indradeep, I'm gonna share a couple of slides from my end. One, I want all of you to take note of the next 2 sessions, considering that many of you are coming in from a PCM background. You can pass in a word to your friends, juniors. We have a session coming up on Wednesday on liberal arts. A fantastic speaker, again, you know, with an amazing pedigree. Aditya Barlia comes in next week, on coming Wednesday, an alumnus from Stanford University and masters from Harvard. And then we do a life skills program on August 2nd. For people who are asking about hospitality, Andrew could be a go-to guy. Comes in from a hospitality background, right, and extremely passionate about that industry. You will have to allow us time to, submit these questions and come back. In a week, 2 weeks time. The recording of this session will be available on our channel NPOCA. I would recommend that you subscribe and follow the channel so that every time when we do an upload, you get an update on the same. We do not have a mechanism of making any announcement of the videos being uploaded, besides a one-off information on the channel, right? Or one-off email that we might send. So you have Indradeep's number, email and his WhatsApp number. You can ping him directly there, and for all your questions. And we will also try and answering some of your questions over our website or email. It is NPOCA When you go to YouTube, type NPOCA. You have the QR code on your screens. You might as well just scan it. Thank you so much. My apologies that we could not take up all the questions. As I see, there are
Arun Sambhav here, if you can go back to your last slide, please. Just a clarification, don't confuse liberal arts with humanities. This session will cover in detail about combination of mechanical with electronics, combination of mechanical with design, and mixing of other streams. So don't confuse it with humanities. For people who are present here, this is one of the informative session and a must-attend session to see how the combination works in education.
My apologies. Thank you so much for correcting me, Sambhav. Thank you so much. Yeah. So those who are interested in design, what else?
Design, engineering, humanities, philosophy, anything. This session will talk about how you can combine various streams and choose a career which suits these combinations.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. With this, we'll take your permission and close the session. See you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Thanks, yeah, bye.